909 here, Big 550 KTRS. There is a conversation going on in the region about whether or not the city should join the county should join the city, some type of merger. And one of the people who has been talking about it and has been on the forefront has been a St. Louis treasurer for years. He's a former ambassador to Hungary, and he's here in studio. Ambassador Burt Walker, welcome back to the Big 550 KTRS.
Thank you very much, McGraw.
It is good to see you. We could talk about 1,000 different things. I just learned, somebody told me in passing that your father helped start the New York Mets.
He was a fanatic baseball fan, and his ambition, lifelong ambition, was to own a baseball team. So finally, I believe it was in 1964, he and Joan Payson and a fellow named Donald Grant were the three founders of the New York Mets.
And then he ultimately sold it at some point down the line, right?
Yeah, he actually passed away in 1977, and it was sold after that.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So he was there for the '69 Mets. He
was. Believe me, that was a very high moment for all of our family.
I don't know if many people know that a St. Louis, and he lived here in St. Louis, right?
He was a St. Louis and born and bred until 1932, when his father persuaded him to move to New York, and that was where he spent the rest of his life, just outside New York City.
And so I don't think many people know that a St. Louisan helped start the Mets. That doesn't sit well with a lot of St. Louisans, but what are you going to do? Well, we can talk about that some other time. Okay, so you are one of the leaders of a group called Better Together. And explain to people what this Better Together organization is charged with doing.
Very good. Thank you. I'd be delighted to do that. Better Together should really have a question mark after it, because what we are doing as the people involved in Better Together is trying to pull together as much data and information as we possibly can to let the population in the St. Louis region know about the tremendous amount of duplication, waste that is going on with our 115 government structures and the more than $2 billion that is being spent on government services in St. Louis County and St. Louis City.
So this organization has been charged with putting out a number of reports. I believe there's 2 so far. Is that right?
That's right. 1 so far, working on the second.
Working on the second one. And there's going to be a total of 5, correct?
That is 6.
Six. Okay. And the idea is to put out the information so that when we debate it and argue it, we at least come from the same series of facts.
You've got it. That's exactly right.
Thanks for coming in. Have a good day. Because all right, let's start with this organization, because it's interesting in and of itself. This organization does not officially take a stand. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Even though you have people who are donating to this campaign or to this organization that have opinions on it.
That is also true. We are a 501c3 organization, and so we are getting contributions. And it's important, McGraw, that people understand we are not taking a position, as you just said, but we are coming up and uncovering all the data that we think will permit people to make a wise decision whether there should be some sort of unification between the city and the county.
You have people in this organization that are for it. You have other people in this organization that are against it. All opinions are welcome.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's get to the first report. The first report said what?
Well, the first report, which was dealing with public finance, showed that there is many of the, or quite a few of the, what do we call them, metropolitan areas, the small townships in St. Louis County who are not large enough to do any funding, so that those townships do not have access to funds for their police, fire, and so forth. So it's another reason we hope that people will say, wow, this is something we have to do something about. Either they should combine maybe with another township, or something should be done so that all these people who live in these very small townships can get access to funding.
They're usually smaller. They're usually predominantly African American, and they're usually socioeconomically depressed, if you will. And so there's no way to grow any region if you don't have access to money.
That is true.
You know something about access to money. If you don't have access to money, you can't grow.
That is absolutely right.
So the idea is, if they were, that's what it just says. But inferencing that, you can make the argument that if they were combined in a larger region or some other form of government, you could then lend them money with the backing of the St. Louis metropolitan area, so that to help make that area less economically depressed and sort of try and improve things, bring a department store, roads, sewers, schools, all those types of things.
Sir, you are absolutely right. McGraw, I think we should elect you to our board. I like what you just said. It makes great sense.
The other side of that says, well, wait a minute. I'm on the hook for that money if we guarantee some of these depressed areas access to these funds. It's a bad area. Why should I put my good name and my good credit onto those people?
Well, I suppose that argument can be made, but we believe if that happens in a number of cases, we believe that is going to lead to a reduction of the duplication that is going on. It will lead to more jobs. If we do this, we will enable these small townships to promote themselves, to bring in more business, to grow, and so that people who are on the hook for loans or whatever will see that they are financially in better shape than they were before.
Yeah. The town of was it Baldwin just passed a non-binding resolution saying that they don't want any part of this. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to deal with it. I'm sure you got the letter. It was sent to everyone at Better Together, as well as Mayor Slay. Like, thank you very much. We don't want to be part of this conversation. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we did. I saw that, read that in the paper. We believe that the people in Baldwin who are responsible for that opinion simply do not have all the facts. One of the facts they have is that they will not be responsible for any of the pension funds of the firemen or police in the city. A lot of people in the county are afraid that if this should come about, they are going to be on the hook and liable for a lot of the obligations of the city if the city should re-enter the county. That is simple. We have a legal opinion that is not the case. They will have no liability whatsoever for any of the debts of the city.
That's interesting, too, because even though that wasn't one of the 6 reports, it was released, researched, figured out that whatever type of future government exists, what the city is on the hook for, the city's on the hook for. What you're not on the hook for, you're not on the hook for. So
Correct.
If I get married to a girl who has her Nordstrom's credit card is through the roof, I'm on the hook for it.
Yeah.
This way, I'm not on the hook for her Nordstrom's credit card.
Yeah.
Is it a fair way of saying it?
I suppose it is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What would you like to see, or what are we talking about here? What type of merger or reunification or what are we looking? What are we actually talking about here? What would it look like?
McGraw, that's obviously a very good question, and the answer to that is we do not know. That has to be decided later on when we get all the information. You had said earlier that merger is something that we are certainly not talking about, and that is probably unlikely to happen in the short term. Perhaps reentry of the city into the county is a little more likely to happen. But what we would like to happen, what I personally would like to happen, and I should say I'm talking for myself,
Sure.
not for the board of directors, but some unification, whether it's reentry, merger, some other thing, some unification of the city and county that will be similar to what happened in Indianapolis. And in Indianapolis, as you know, and many people know, which brought about a merger of the city, was a combination of the city and the county in 1970, has led to tremendous dynamism, growth, addition of jobs, much more economic prosperity than it had before. And most people attribute that to the fact that they were able to bring about a unification of the city and the county.
That is Burt Walker, and in terms of full disclosure, I have been a super fan ever since the first time I met you, Burt Walker, so I am guilty as charged if I'm throwing you softballs. I can't help myself. Will you
Keep throwing them, please. Keep throwing them.
Will you stick around for another segment?
Please, thank you.
Ambassador Burt Walker talking about Better Together, talking about a St. Louis County, St. Louis City reunification, or something like that as we continue this conversation around the region. We'll come back and talk to somebody who is right there on the front
This
line.
is the McGraw Show on KTRS.
Yeah. 9:25 here on the Big 550 KTRS. Burt Walker is our guest, former ambassador to Hungary, and he's part of a group called Better Together, which is an organization that is starting the conversation in the region about whether or not the city and the county should have some type of regional agreement. Burt, when you talk about St. Louis, somebody said to me once that neighborhoods and towns and mayors are more or less zoning commissions. So the argument is you go to a town, let's say Brentwood or Maplewood or Kirkwood or whatever else, and they don't want that store there. They want this house there. That house needs to be this. That addition needs to be that. And that's what those towns should be dealing in. Should they really be dealing in tax structure and trash collection and fire and police? It seems like there's a whole lot we put on these small communities when really people only really care about, is my neighbor going to build a house too big next door to me? Does that make any sense?
Yes, I understand that. And one of the things that we encounter is that in these townships that you referred to, there is great loyalty to the police, the fire, and so forth. And people say, I don't want that changed. I don't want that. But and if you do unify the city and the county, that's all going to be changed, and that is simply not the case. And it hasn't been the case in Indianapolis and others. Those townships have permitted, almost without exception, to remain as they are at the present time.
There's a lot of mistrust, and a lot of which I think you have to fight in all this, is that you're open to having it set up any way we want, right? Whatever we collectively agree to, you're open to, right? I mean, there is no hidden agenda here, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. We have done some polling, and we will do more polling as time goes on, and we are pleased so far to say that in the city, once people are informed about this issue and the ramifications of it, there is tremendous, more than 50% of the people we're explaining are for it. Not so much in the county, but over 40%, once it is explained that they do not pick up all the obligations of the city and so forth, there is real interest in it.
Right.
So, and we're very pleased, as you may know, that we have the mayor, and who is an ex officio member of our board, as well as the county executive. Charlie Dooley is on our board.
Right.
Ex officio.
How much? Well, so what's the other process here? So these reports will come out over the next year or so. Is that
correct?
Right? And then what happens next? Do you have
then presumably there will be a there will be a meeting, presumably, of a new board of directors. It will not be the same 501c3 that we have now, which is mission is to collect information. But this new revamped board of directors will have to decide, should we have a vote of the city and county? Should we just leave matters as they are now? We find after the polling that people don't want change. They like it the way they is, and the way is at the present time, and we don't want change, in which case we're not going to argue with that.
Right.
But we think that when all the information is made public, there's going to be a tremendous, almost demand that we move ahead with some sort of collaboration, consolidation, so that we are not wasting the money. Right now, we don't have the tremendous expenses.
Two things here that I find interesting. As a St. Louis resident for 15 years, another 5 years, and I'll call myself a St. Louisan, I guess. After you get here for 20 years, you can be a St. Louisan. So I'm still on my probationary period, I guess. Things get done when everybody has a seat at the table. And things don't ever get done if there's a group, an organization, or a part of that group that feels slighted and feels unheard. Is that true or false?
I think that's true. And that's why we want to proceed. This will not be driven by what we're doing by the big corporations in this area. We're very absolutely committed to proceeding in a way that we are not going to be dominated or influenced just by the major businesses. It will be from the ground up, we trust.
It's extraordinary that when everybody has a seat at the table and everybody's questions are allowed to be heard, it's amazing what can be done, right?
I agree. Absolutely.
Right. Whether you agree with the group or not, if they have a seat at the table and they're heard, left, right, center, black, white, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, whatever it is, if they have a seat at the table and you're talking about their hometown, because it's just as much as theirs as mine, yours, and everybody else's, if you have a seat at the table, it's extraordinary what can be done.
You're so true. And that is why, sir, we have a very diversified board of directors of this Better Together organization, and it's still in formation, and it will continue to be diversified so that all segments of the population will be given a seat at the table.
The scary part, the fear side runs in is when I think people from Kirkwood say, "Wait a minute, I don't want to hang out with the Webster Groves people," right? I mean, there's that provincialness about it, which is good, but I think once people are reassured, my school district is still going to be my school district, right?
Yes.
If you go to Kirkwood, you're still going to go to Kirkwood. If you go to Ladue, you can still go to Ladue. If you want to go to Normandy, you can go to Normandy, right? I mean, it's people think the worst, but it's really not much is going to change. However variation this all comes up with.
You got it. Absolutely. We cannot change that. There's no chance that this could come about if changes such as you're referring to were enacted.
Yeah. Before I move on to Hungary and Russia real quickly, is there anything else you want to say, anything else you want the people to know as we go forward and we have this conversation?
No, the only thing I would say, thank you for this, is that everybody wants the St. Louis region to grow, to bring in jobs, for poverty to be reduced, and all the studies and information that we have from other cities who have gone through is that poverty has been reduced. There has been growth. Taxes have not been gone up, as some people fear. And it just looks to us, from all the information we have, like a win-win-win situation if we can bring more collaboration and some sort of unification between the city and the county.
That is Burt Walker. Do you have a couple more minutes for me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's talk about what's going on as a former ambassador to Hungary. You quite aware of the Russian influence on Hungary and the what happened there. What are your thoughts as you sit and watch Putin and all of this?
Well, it's a little bit frightening right now because of what's happened in the Ukraine area, because Hungary is largely dependent on energy from Russia. And Russia recently Putin has made a substantial loan to Hungary to expand their nuclear facilities. And it's a very sizable loan. I can't tell you the size of it, but it's a sizable one. And we do not know exactly what action Putin and Russia may take to bring more domination or more influence into Hungary. But we, like the leaders of the Czech Republic and Poland and others, are a little bit on edge about what is happening because of the tremendous influence of Russian energy in the country of Hungary.
It's one thing to stop at Crimea. It's another thing to go into the Ukraine or anything else. And you talk about this energy independence and what's going on in the U.S. and around the world with natural gas and fracking and all of that. It's changing the geopolitical world, is it not? The more each day we become more energy independent.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just hope that we will be able to now unleash and expand our energy resources and exports to countries like Hungary and other countries in Central and East and Western Europe.
And Europe, you have to think, I think Thomas Friedman wrote about this in the New York Times, if Europe decides to become much more energy efficient, much more driven by solar, wind, natural gas, all those other things, along with exploration and all this stuff, it decreases the influence of Russia, right? I mean, that's a
absolutely.
It's a moonshot, if you will, for energy independence, if you will.
Absolutely.
Burt Walker is our guest. Burt, I'll let you go. One last question for you. When the Mets play the Cardinals, who do you root for?
I have been a Cardinal fan ever since I was 5 years old. I was told my father was a real Cardinal fan until he was one of the founders of the Mets. He didn't like it that I was secretly pulling for the Cardinals and I will always be a Cardinal fanatic.
Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news. The original owner's son of the New York Mets rooted for the Cardinals. There you go. Ambassador Burt Walker, thank you very much for your service. Thank you for your friendship, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you, sir, very much, McGraw.
The Piccadilly at Manhattan.